Cypress Financial Group presents the Retirement Roundtable Podcast with John Scallan. Get more at cypressfinancial.net. Now, let's get to the show.
My name is Mark Owens. John Scallan is here. And John, can we continue our conversation about the biggest myths and misconceptions that adults face in retirement?
Absolutely, my friend. The list is long. It's going to take us several months to address all of these risks, as you so eloquently put it.
Yes, sir. And if you missed our conversation about some of these misconceptions, we invite you to stream the Retirement Roundtable podcast. You can find it at the homepage of cypressfinancial.net. And a big one right now, John, as we are faced with the headlines are heavy, and we talk about it every week. Geopolitical, and not just over the past couple of weeks. We're talking over the past couple of months. You doom scroll, and social media is heavy. You know, you flip on cable news, that's heavy right now. So, John, what would you say to the adult that says, you know what, I'm just going to sit tight. I'm just going to see how this all plays out?
Yeah, Mark, I would argue that it actually makes more sense to meet with a financial advisor when you're, quote, waiting on the sidelines than when everything feels certain. I mean, Mark, there are people sitting in cash or hesitating. That is a decision in itself, and it comes with, Mark, I would say some real risks and opportunity costs.
You feel a little anxiety. I mean, we all are about what's happening in the world right now. But John wants to help you preserve your assets and even build income in retirement, regardless of what the headlines are feeding you right now. Maybe a little sense of clarity from Cypress Financial.
Yeah, Mark, you know, waiting, right, is still an investment strategy, whether it's intentional or not. I mean, let me give you an example. You know, if someone is sitting in cash, they are effectively betting on timing the market. Here's the challenge. Missing just a handful of the market's best days can significantly reduce long-term returns. I mean, Mark, think about this journey through the geopolitical crisis, you know, in the Middle East. I mean, when the bombs started dropping and the U.S. and Israel were getting really aggressive with dealing with Iran, the markets went down. But the people who jumped out, okay, the majority of them, some of my own friends actually missed the really shot like a cannon upward move of the market when things settled down a bit. So again, because people are uncertain, what I would say is that clarity replaces hesitation. Okay, it's time to stress test a plan. It's time to show multiple scenarios. And I'm talking about good scenarios, bad scenarios, and just average market. Let's sit down, make sure that your portfolio and your investment allocation is aligned with your investment goals and not aligned with the headlines that, Mark, quite frankly, these headlines are never going to stop. Let's build a plan. Let's make sure it works in good times and in bad. So now more than ever is the right time to sit down and look at your strategy and review what you're doing in your portfolio.
All right, this is a big one, a big misconception in retirement. John, once I retire, my taxes will automatically go down, right? No paycheck means lower taxes.
Oh, that is a big one. You've got me on my toes today. Listen, Mark, at 73 years old, RMDs, otherwise known as required minimum distribution, force distributions from your IRAs, your 401ks, your 457s, your 403bs, all of these qualified pension plans are simply forced distribution at 73 years old. Now, add your pension and up to 85% of Social Security, that gets taxed. Listen, you could stay in the same bracket or even go higher, because what we find is most people don't withhold enough for those distributions, and sometimes they are shocked in April when they owe $8,000 or even $10,000. I mean, Mark, here's the thing. We talk about this a lot on the Retirement Roundtable. roundtable, think about someone who has a 401k. They're like, hey, I've got $900,000 in this bucket and I'm sitting really, really well. Well, remember, you have a silent partner in those qualified pension plans. And guess who that is? It's our favorite big brother, the Internal Revenue Service.
Right.
Okay. They have their hand out every time you take a distribution, Mark.
So when it comes to tax strategy in retirement, you often see the headlines or the commercials, and somebody always says, hey, if you call me right now, I'll give you a tax-free retirement. I'll make it so that you don't pay any taxes in retirement. John, is that a myth? Is that a misconception? Can that be done?
Well, I can tell you this. I wouldn't say it. I wouldn't say it in person, and I wouldn't say it on this show. I really haven't met anybody who can wield the magic wand and make people pay no taxes. Not legally anyway. I mean, you know, Mark, back to the plan. There are so many things that you can do. And you know, I like to make this analogy. You know, tax preparation versus tax planning.
Right.
I always say this is like playing checkers to playing chess. Okay. Most people, all they do is work on tax preparation. Oh my God, it's April 10th. Let me pull together all of my deductions, my 1099s, my W-2s, my distributions from my retirement plan, and then let me try to get my taxes as low as possible. Mark, the truth is people need to play chess when it comes to tax. They need to have a plan that says, okay, I've got 3 buckets of money here. I've got my Social Security. I've got my distributions from my retirement plans. I may have a small pension. Maybe I have an individual brokerage account. Okay. All of these are going to have their own tax strategy. People who are tax planners who have a strategy, they are looking 2 to 3 moves ahead like any good or even average chess player. You know, instead of waiting till 2026 to plan for 2025's distribution strategy, that should have happened in early 2025. When we do financial planning for our clients, we say, okay, we have 4 different buckets here. Where can we take distributions? Where can we develop a coordinated distribution strategy, which includes potentially Roth IRA conversions to make my taxes to be the lowest possibly that they can. Again, this is playing chess. These are the things that we talk about in every client meeting. Sometimes it's just over the telephone. We'll have a conversation with a client. They may have a Roth bucket, and instead of pulling $40,000 out of their 401k or IRA rollover, what we're doing is pulling $20,000 out of this tax-free bucket called a Roth. Maybe this was a bucket of money that we did conversions on 3, 4, 5 years ago. So again, $20,000 from the Roth, only $20,000 from the IRA or the 401k. The difference in that strategy alone can mean thousands in tax savings to each and every one of our listeners.
CypressFinancial.net to get more from the team. All right, another myth, another misconception for you. Always thinking about risk, always thinking about taxes, always thinking about your income in retirement. And the myth is that, John, my 401k is all the retirement plan I really need. I've got $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 in my 401k. I'll be all set.
Oh man, here again. First thing I would tell, any one of our listeners, any one of our clients, any one of my friends, remember that $900,000 is not all yours. Approximately, I would say as an average, $200,000 of that bucket of money is property of the Internal Revenue Service. A 401k, it's an account. It is not a plan. It doesn't tell you when you can retire. It doesn't tell you how much to pull safely. It doesn't tell you how to handle what we affectionately call the tax bomb. The tax bomb, that's that big surprise you get when you file your taxes from the prior year. And again, you were just going backwards, gathering data instead of planning for distributions before you have to pay taxes. You can have $900,000 and still retire broke if you don't know how to turn this money into sustainable income for you and minimizing tax payments to your silent partner, the IRS.
I want to talk about a 401k here for just a couple of seconds. I know you and the team at Cypress Financial, y'all offer the 401k X-ray. You take a deep dive into our 401k. Maybe we have multiple accounts. What's one of the biggest mistakes that we as adults, what's one of the biggest mistakes that we make regarding our 401k?
You know, Mark, I would say one of the most common. A client will come in, they have a 401k. There are 6 mutual funds inside of this plan. I mean, number one, 401ks are notoriously high in fees. Again, I think some of it is because it's an ERISA plan, which is a plan that is governed and regulated by the Fed. You know, 401k plans, there's a lot more administration work tied to these plans. There are 5,500 forms that need to be filed annually. 90% of 401ks, you have to pay a third-party administrator to administrate this plan, so that it is in line with federal guidelines. So, you know, number one, we met with, you know, hundreds of clients over the many years we've been in business. They come in, they are shocked by the hidden fees that are attached to a 401k. Now, again, 401ks were one of the greatest things ever to happen to American citizens, but just because they are federally mandated and regulated, they are very high in fees. One of the first things we talk about is it may make sense to move this money into an individual retirement account. Remember, when you move money from a 401k to an IRA, there are no taxes due. It's just a transfer from one qualified plan to another. Again, no distribution there. You continue on with your tax sheltered investment. Now, here's the next thing we see. We take their investments, we run them through Morningstar. This is a truly independent organization that has the ability to break these plans apart. One of the first things we commonly see, 6 mutual funds, but in 4 of these funds, the Mag 7 stocks dominate each and every one of these same 4 funds. Think about it. Amazon, Google, Tesla, Microsoft, Meta. I mean, the list goes on and on. These are the Mag 7. They constitute 40% of the value of the S&P 500. So listen, we believe in the Mag 7. These are incredible equities, but we don't recommend that you have those same 7 to 8 stocks in 4 out of 6 of your mutual funds. Those are 2 of the big ones, Mark, the fees and the overlap of these funds with, some of the same equities.
Continuing our conversation about the biggest myths and misconceptions in retirement. Here's a big one, John. Adults who think that healthcare and retirement, John, it's only going to cost me, I don't know, maybe about $100,000, maybe somewhere around there. Is that enough?
This is one of the biggest misconceptions that, we come across weekly, talking with new clients, talking with, some of our long-term clients. Listen, I have seen up close and personal the devastating, not only financial effects, but the effects that long-term care, Alzheimer, dementia has on a family. The numbers are staggering. staggering. Now, this is not my number. This is from the federal government. A couple will spend $300,000 or more just on Medicare premiums, deductibles, and out-of-pocket costs over a 20 to 30-year period. Mark, here is the shocker. That doesn't include long-term care. Nursing home runs $8,000 to $10,000 a month. One spouse needing care for 3 years can cost an additional $200,000 to $300,000. And Mark, here's what a lot of our couples really don't think about. Let's say you have an older couple, one of the spouses gets sick. Who takes care of that spouse? It's usually the younger or healthier spouse who is not sick. Here's the big thing. When one spouse passes away, the question becomes simply this: who takes care of the surviving spouse? Certainly, we hope it's going to be the kids, family members, maybe friends, but what we like to plan for is this couple, regardless of who predeceases the other, that they have the financial resources to make the right decisions. My gosh, do they want care at home? Bingo, we've planned for this. We've got the money. We've had clients who are like, look, I certainly love the fact that my children want to take care of me, but I would prefer to go into assisted living. My mind is still there, but I'm a little banged up. I'd like to go to a facility where I can still socialize with people my age, do line dances, have a doctor on staff, jump in the facility bus and go to the grocery store or the casino. Bingo, we've planned for this and we have the money. Again, this may be the most damaging myth that people don't see, don't plan for. These medical costs, especially late in retirement, they can really devastate a financial plan.
Why do you think it is that we as adults overlook long-term care and health care as much as we do?
Yeah, Mark, as I mentioned earlier, I have seen this up close and personal, not only with my father, but with another family member. Listen, for the people who see that, for the people who are caregivers, man, they have no doubt that this can truly, truly be the wrong way to end your life. Mm-hmm. I think for people who haven't been exposed to this, for people who haven't seen it, listen, who wants to really think about what could potentially be the worst part of retirement? Look, it is not the happiest subject to talk about, but in every single meeting, in every single plan, we have a whole silo, a whole segment of the retirement plan specifically dedicated to long-term care, to care after you can't take care of yourself. Mark, again, not the prettiest thing to talk about. Again, I'm hoping that the advances in artificial intelligence, gene sequencing, computing power, I am hoping and praying that these dreaded diseases, including the beast, which we call cognitive decline, can be addressed or even cured. But until that time, we have to talk about it. We have to plan for it. It's part of this life that we have to address.
Yeah, it's not all puppies and rainbows and unicorns and everything's perfect in retirement. There's going to be some heavy conversations with John Scallan, but having a plan to hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. That's why that initial consultation, no cost, no obligation to begin this process. 504-732-1001, cypressfinancial.net. One more for you, John, as we're talking about the biggest retirement myths and misconceptions. And you see the financial talking heads, the Susie Orman, the Kevin O'Leary, and they'll say things like, John, don't even think about retiring unless you have $2 million saved. Or if you want a successful retirement, you have to have at least $5 million in assets. While that could be and should be and would be nice, the reality is that's not fair for everybody because what I need and what you need are two totally different things.
Mark, that is so well said. I mean, listen, I've had meetings with clients who have $600,000 saved. Their combined Social Security is, $4,500 per month. But guess what? They have zero debt. They don't owe anybody anything. They have, we've seen situations where people have, health care from a municipality. They're not paying the full Medicare premiums. These are situations that absolutely can work. Mark, all the way on the other spectrum, I mean, I've seen, folks who have $2-3 million in assets, but they just have, refied a house or built the home of their dream. We've seen situations where there was a $900,000 home, built and mortgaged just 2 years ago. So again, certainly in a perfect world, everybody has $2 million. Everybody has robust Social Security. Everybody has no debt. But that's just not reality. What I can tell you is there are ways to mitigate this. It's really important to get a financial advisor, let's call it at 60 years old or late 50s or mid 50s or even in your 40s, because there are ways to deal with all of this. But again, it boils down to a plan. It boils down to discipline. It boils down to having a clear vision of what retirement looks like. Mark, I don't think that there's a one size fits all. And I think the big variable that most people overlook is what kind of debt load are you carrying into retirement? Mark, maybe it's a small amount. Maybe it's just a matter of working from 64 to 66. Right? Just maybe working a couple of years longer. That might not be ideal for every situation. But Mark, we're going to talk about this. We're going to look at these issues. We'll look at your debt and we will build a plan that works for you.
Investment advisory services offered through Cypress Financial Group, a registered investment advisor firm. Registration is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance products, including annuities offered through Cypress Financial Group, John Scallan, Louisiana Insurance License Number 1064997. The firms are separate entities. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and are not offered by Cypress Financial Group. Read your contract for restrictions, limitations, or penalties.